And a good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to another edition of Real Talks. My host, my name is David Steele. I'm your host today. So today is a big day. Anybody who saw my tweet, and we're going to pass on the what we're going to do with Guardians. We'll do that another day because today, this is the second biggest day of the year. Now you're thinking, well, what is that? It's Oscar nomination day. Obviously the biggest day of the year for Hollywood is, you know, it is Oscar night. The Oscars are the perennial. This is what we talk about all year, guys. This is what we're here for. This is why we go out and see the movies. This is why we critique the movies. This is why we say this is what we like. This is why we say we didn't care for this. Today, this morning, and I was up at 5:30. We had the Oscar nominations, and for the most part, I gotta say, not shocked. There was a couple of things that really kind of, we're gonna get into all of it. So, yeah, today. So anybody who saw my tweet earlier, this is the second biggest day. I have my good friend with me, Matthew Anderson, who is the Oscar predictor. This is the second annual Real Talks Oscar prediction show.
Yes.
And how you doing? And what's going on?
I'm doing good. So you said you were up at 5:30. I was up at 4:30 in the
Okay,
morning
so you
here
got
in
me
the
beat on that.
what was it? Northeastern PA.
Oh, yeah, that
But
that
I
is
was
early.
I mean, to be fair, I did go to bed at around like 10:30, so I got 6 hours of sleep, but I got a little caffeine here to
Nice.
get
Yeah,
me through.
I got my
So,
little Diet Coke here to power me through this. So this is the second biggest day of the year, like I said, guys. This is why we do what we do and why we go out and see the movies and everything else. And before we get into all of the categories, and we're going to get into like 13 or 14 categories, so it's going to be a long show. You guys are going to get a lot of stuff today. Um, I just got to say, first and foremost, I was really and we have a comment. Hello, fellows. Barbie, I think it's out of the best picture equation. Well, yes and no. And we're going to get into that. And we're definitely going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. But there is something about Barbie I want you to stick around for, though, Alex. But yeah, it's one of those things where I think this is why we do what we do. And if you love movies and you follow movies, this is why, you're up at 4:30 in the morning like he was, or 5:30 in the morning. And so off the top, I got to just say there weren't a lot of surprises, except one, and we're
I
going to get into
mean,
that. So,
there were some
what were your
surprises.
initial reactions?
Yeah, so there were some surprises for sure. I think the biggest one you and I are talking about was for me, like it was a surprise, so to speak, because
Mhm.
I have a couple theories as to what went down with the big surprise to me. Really, I think the biggest surprise for me was score. The fact that I think maybe one of the few who have gotten like 5 out of 5 for predicting, and again, when we get into some of these major categories, I'll explain what happened and what went wrong, and why I
Yeah.
predicted certain ways. But
So,
the one thing I do want to say though before we get
mhm,
into depths, because we're probably going to be for about an hour or so.
mhm.
This is the first time ever since we've expanded the lineup to 10 nominees, or more than 5 nominees at least, when we started the whole preferential ballot era. This is the first time that we've ever had PGA and Oscars line up 10 for 10 for Best Picture.
Yeah. So that's
So yeah, that's really, it shows you the kind of year we had, so to speak.
yeah.
So
So off the top, so we got a couple of the major ones there. Oppenheimer led the way with 13 nominations. I don't think anybody was really shocked about that. That is just, you know,
the only
uh,
thing I
po-
was surprised the only thing I was surprised by real quick about Oppenheimer was costumes, just because I
mhm.
didn't think that they would actually go for the all suits, but I guess, there's enough crowd work in here for the costume designer to be like, "You know what? Let's do it." So,
Yeah. Poor Things, 11, which was, I mean, as the nominations were coming along, it seemed like I was seeing Poor Things pop up in every single category. That
mhm,
ended up finishing in second place with 11, which is fantastic. Scorsese, we're going to talk about him in a couple minutes too.
mhm.
10. And the number 10 is a big number for something else, and he made history, and we'll talk about that later on. And then Barbie rounded out the top four with 8, and I really think that that was a big, big thing. So yeah, and we have $2 billion money makers here, okay, in Barbie and Oppenheimer. We've got your two really professional films, if you will, Poor Things and Killers of the Flower Moon. So you've got that nice mix. So yeah, it was well rounded in that respect. Um, okay, so we're gonna jump right into it, guys. Enough talk. So what we're gonna do is this: we're gonna talk about the category. I'm gonna tell you what the category is. I'm gonna put the slide up. Then we're gonna do this two different ways. Okay, we're gonna talk about who we think should win and who deserves to win, because there is a major difference. Everybody thinks a certain person should win, but who we deserves to win, that's a completely different story. So
Yeah.
let's get started. And this is we're going to start with makeup and hairstyling. So this is one of those that you know I think that when you saw it, and we can talk all about Maestro now.
Yeah.
Uh, so here are your nominees. We had Golda, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and the Society of Snow. Now, let me ask you: number one, did you like the nominations? And number two, who do you think deserves to win, and who do you think will win, Matthew?
Sight unseen on Golda and Society of the Snow. I actually enjoy the nominees in the category here. I do think of the three that I have seen, Oppenheimer's probably the weakest. Should be I would say for the one that I think, and we also have to keep in mind too, the Oscars are March 10th. So whatever we say, unless if it's like there's a couple categories
There's
that
only to me there's only 4 locks, and we'll get into those later.
yeah. But I should also point out that what we say is sort of a prediction that we're doing right now because anything can happen from now until March 10th. But I think for right now, I'll predict Maestro as the like makeup winner, and I personally think it should win of the nominees here. I do like. I didn't mind Oppenheimer's work for the makeup overall, and I also thought Poor Things did a really good makeup job, but I think what Kazuhiro does with transforming both Mulligan and in particular Bradley Cooper as they age over the course of the film, I think is really really stunning and accomplished, and should be should give the makeup team credit for what they had to do. Um, Especially when you hear all the stories about how Cooper had to, Cooper's call time was like 1 or 2 in the morning, and they had to apply makeup on from like his younger self to where his older self would take like maybe 4 hours or
It was
maybe
5
five.
hours.
Yeah,
It was
5 hours. Yeah,
hours.
it took a while. So yeah, I think Maestro is my prediction for right now, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And you're right. So I've been sitting down watching some of the videos on the makeup and the hair of the film and everything else. To me, this is one of the few that I think Maestro is um is going to actually take,
It's probably
because
the only category it might
yeah,
take.
I would agree with you, because the makeup job, the transformation job, for when I mean, you can Google the pictures when what he looks like,
Yeah.
what Bradley Cooper actually looks like to an older um, Leonard Bernstein. It's phenomenal, and so I agree with you. I think hair and makeup here, this has got to go to Maestro. This is the one. I would agree with you again. This is one of the few categories I think it legitimately has a chance for. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Poor Things end up winning, or did they do? Um, didn't Poor Things ended up winning makeup at some point at like the Globes, or do they even do that?
The Globes don't do it. Critics' Choice went with Barbie.
Okay, okay. I
They
knew it
so
was.
yeah. So the only thing that and I've always and I we also need to point out too that the Critics' Choice and the Golden Globes, they can help, like the critics groups, they can help build momentum for said film, but it's really the industry is where it's going to count. Like these guilds and the BAFTAs, especially with BAFTA, because they overlap with Academy voters, especially with a good chunk of the international voters. And as we saw in some of the other categories, we saw the international films take over, especially in stuff like director and picture and screenplay. So,
Mhm.
so we got to keep an eye on that.
And by the way, guys, so when he's talking about like BAFTA and the Globes and CCA and everything else,
Critics'
those are
Choice,
called,
yeah.
anybody who's not familiar with it, those are called precursors. So these are all of the award shows that are either televised or not televised. So when you hear us talking about the word quote precursor, we're talking about the Golden Globes, the CCAs, the BAFTAs, the SAGs, and some of these categories are not in other particular things. So, for example, the SAG has Best Ensemble. Oscars don't have that.
No.
Okay. So, I mean, and the Golden Globes, they don't have hair and makeup, but the Oscars do. So, I mean,
Mhm.
it's a combination, and it's a jumble of things. So, I would, once again, I would tend to agree with you. I would go with Maestro here. Okay. Moving on. So, we're going to go to another below the line category,
Category.
and that is the costume. So the costume is also something that is a character in a movie. Let's face it.
Mhm.
I mean, the clothes are, whether it's a period piece or whether it's, whatever it is. So our five nominees are Barbie, Kills of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. So where do you see that end up, and how do you see that shaking out? Who do you think should win, and who do you think will win, Matthew?
Um, I'm trying to think. I really like the costumes in Poor Things personally. But I do think Barbie actually has a really good shot here, and a lot of it is because Jacqueline Duran is at least a two-time Oscar winner. Maybe she might have won more, but they might go with Barbie here for costumes, for the category here, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think of the particular films here, I mean, I got to be honest with you, and they're really unique. I think
Mhm.
yeah, and this is just once again, Matthew said it was predictions. I'm going to go with Killers of the Flower Moon here
Mhm.
because it's one of those things where it's you take a look at the costumes of Barbie. Now, I mean, there's a lot of, and yes, it's a lot of toyish, dollish type of things, but their dresses, they're you know a little outrageous here and there. Oppenheimer, once again, it's a period piece. Okay. Napoleon, yes, it's a period piece, but okay. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix in I'm blanking on the blonde's name. But
Vanessa Kirby.
thank you, Vanessa Kirby. Those are really the two stars of that film.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Killers of the Flower Moon because it was more of an epic film. It was a I yes, it was a long film, guys. It was 3.5 hours. I understand that.
Mhm.
But you had a lot of costume changes.
Yeah.
And you had to do it for a lot of people. So, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Killers of the Flower Moon wins this
We'll
because,
see.
yeah, that's one of those things where I think that's to me, it wouldn't be an upset. It's not like one of those definitive lock type of categories and say, oh, that's going to win. No, I really, for me, I think it's Killers of the Flower Moon. So, okay. Moving on. So we've done two already. We're kind of breezing through these already.
Yeah.
So our next film, our next category, cinematography.
Pff.
Cinematography. This is, I think, a no-brainer for me, but it's not a lock. We have El Conde, Kills of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Once again, who do you think should win, and who do you think will win?
Um, Again, sight unseen on El Conde. I really like this lineup a lot. I really enjoy it. I've always been saying though since July, Oppenheimer's going to win this. Nothing's going to beat it. Even though Maestro has some really great cinematography here, I just think yeah, Oppenheimer is just going to do it. It's just going to go all the way with it. And Hoyte van Hoytema will finally be getting his deserved Oscar win. So you're on mute.
Thank you. I agree with
Yep.
you. I think that I think this is I think this is Oppenheimer's. This is going to be the first one of the night for it of its many. Um, I just think that even though Maestro is amazing, and
Mhm.
Killers of the Flower Moon had a lot of spacious, shots with it, the overheads and everything else. For me, setting up all these things, I mean, just the shot of him, looking through the window where he's going to see the bomb drop and
Mhm.
how far away it was and being able to do all that. Yeah, I think this has to go to Oppenheimer, and this was really it was really well done. So yeah, I'm on board with you on this. Oppenheimer wins this. Okay, moving on. So three down, many more to go, guys. We move to film editing. So once again, we have Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. What do you think wins it? And
Uh,
who do you think wins it?
I love, first off, I really love that Killers of the Flower Moon and Poor Things got in for editing because I thought well, first off, Thelma Schoonmaker I think gets her like ninth Oscar nomination as a whole, and I think she's now the most nominated editor of all time, which is nuts. And Poor Things has some like really slick editing too. But I think Oppenheimer's winning this easily. Like it's, again, just like cinematography, ever since July, like we'll get to another category, but unlike last year, I truly think this year we're going to be getting, spoiler alert, sound and editing go to the same movie. Um, and yeah, and honestly, like this is the kind of movie, Oppenheimer's the kind of edited film that the Academy loves to give a win for, especially with how the cuts are handled, and it's able to, yeah, rewatching it again with my grandma like in December, it's a 3-hour movie that flies by, and it barely felt like a 3-hour film. It felt more like 2 hours to me. Um,
Yeah,
but
no,
yeah,
it's so well done that the time just doesn't even. It what it does is it lets you just when you think you're getting bored at a certain point, it brings you back to another storyline,
yeah.
and that's something that um, is so big here. So, Deadpool, is there a category that you believe can translate to a Best Picture win, i.e., cinematography, editing, etc.? The
Well,
only
well,
one I can think of. Well, I'll let you answer it, and then I'll.
I just want to say we'll get to the end when we talk about the best picture category. And you'll have all your questions answered.
Okay. So yeah, I think I'm with you. I think that Oppenheimer and what
Yeah,
it does and how it does it. I think that takes it down.
yeah,
Moving on, and like I said, guys, we're going through this pretty quick. Animated film. Now
yeah.
this was a little interesting because a lot of people, including myself, and there was a debate about it, saying, "Well, could Across the Spider Verse get into Best Picture and everything else?" And if that did, what was going to knock it out and everything else? We knew it was going to get in the animated picture. That wasn't even an issue.
Yeah.
So the five we have nominated for the Oscar are The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, which was good to see, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and of course, as I aforementioned, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Once again, who do you think should win and who do you think will win, Matthew?
I've only seen one movie here, which is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I might actually try watching Nimona and Robot Dreams and Boy and the Heron. I'm probably not going to watch Elemental because I tried a couple years ago. I tried watching all the animated film nominees, and after I went through it, I'm like, except for one, I don't like this lineup at all. But we'll see what happens with this year. But I think right now Spider Verse has a shot at winning. I would keep an eye out for Boy and the Heron though, because the only thing I could see Boy and the Heron go for is the fact that this branch, unless if you're Toy Story, they don't go for sequels at the Oscars,
Yeah,
except for Toy Story 3 and 4. But we'll see what happens because it was interesting that Golden Globes and Critics' Choice gave us different winners. So
yeah. I think that for me, as much as I would like Spider-Man to win, the point was brought up earlier today that, well, we just had this the other day, or not the other day, but a couple years ago.
mhm.
And so it's one of those things where would the Academy turn around and do it again? Because is the animation usually when you do a sequel, you want to make it better than the original, was the animation in that film good enough to actually put it over the top?
Hmm.
It it was okay. It was really good. I mean, the film was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, did it put it over the top? Eh, I don't know. I mean, if I had to pick one today, and I'm going to go with Boy and the Heron. I know that's not that's
I
probably
mean,
the unpopular choice, but
yeah.
it did win. It's got a precursor under its belt.
The other
I Go ahead.
the other thing that helps Boy and the Heron is that it actually made the PGA lineup, which I don't even think Wind Rises even did that back like 10 years ago. So there is a good chance Hayao Miyazaki could win another Oscar. We don't know right now though. We have to see how the precursors go. The one category I want to see, and as of recording, we don't know the editing nominees yet, but the American Cinema Editors Guild nominations have an animated category.
Oh, they
And
do.
since 2000, did I tell you this before or no?
No, I don't think
Uh,
so.
so since 2009, all the animated film winners in their ACE editors, category for animated film, every winner except one has won that category and go on to win the Oscar. The only one that didn't do it was the Lego movie because it won the Ace Eddie category, but it wasn't even nominated at the Oscars, and the Oscars ended up giving it to Big Hero 6.
Wow.
But outside of that, every other winner at Ace Eddie animated film category, everything that won there won the animated film Oscar. So we'll see what happens.
Now, yeah, yeah. And actually, Deadpool, this is right up the alley of animated. How was Super Mario left off the list?
It's so my explanation is because first off, it's Illumination. They haven't gotten in for animated films since Despicable Me 2. I think that might be the only thing they've ever gotten an Oscar nomination for. And there were just other animated films to pick from. Like, yeah, it's $1 billion money making movie, but we see films like Robot Dreams and Nimona that got in were more like, smaller independent like movies. I mean, especially Robot Dreams, which I had heard from some people, who were saying like like if this were a different animating voting branch, of the Academy of like a couple of years ago, Robot Dreams would easily make it in. But now Robot Dreams is considered a surprise because of who can actually vote in on the animated category. Because I think they now open it up to everyone, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Um, and by the way, little little nugget here for all you guys. I am in the process of, speaking of an ace type of American cinematography editor, I have been talking with Timothy Good. And
oh,
anybody who does not know the name Timothy Good, Google his name. But it's actually Timothy B. Good. But nonetheless, anybody who does not know his name, he is now an Emmy winner. And he was the main editor on, there was a little show last year, and a lot of people, Kyle did it and everybody else, and um, it's called The Last of Us,
yep,
and he ended up winning an Emmy for that. I
nice,
am trying to, and as soon as he gets back, as a matter of fact, he's going to Canada. He's going to make a couple of the stops, but he's going up to Canada to accept an award. When he gets back, and we're going to schedule it, we're going to get him back on the show.
nice.
So stay tuned for that, because that I missed the interview because I had COVID, and Kyle actually ended up doing the interview, and he did a great job, by the way. But we're going to get him back on the show. We're going to talk about his Emmy win. We're going to talk about The Last of Us season 2 and a ton of other stuff. Anyways, guys, just thought I'd tease that for you. Okay, moving on. So we're just moving right through these. So best animated or best original song.
Original
I know this
song.
probably isn't up your alley, but it is a category.
Hmm.
So The Fire Inside, I'm Just Ken, It Never Went Away. The
A
song
song for my
from,
people.
yep, for Killers of the Flower Moon, and What Was I Made For from Barbie. Now, let me ask you something. Correct me if, is that correct to say that they can only submit two
So
songs?
So you can submit 3, but they will only let 2 into the lineup.
Okay.
They did that. I think it was Dreamgirls or Enchanted was like the last movie to get 3 nominations in for song, and they all didn't even win. So they're like, all right, we're only going to revert it back to 2. So of this lineup, I personally think for right now they could go with What Was I Made For. I mean it's kind of the flip your coin kind of pick because the only major precursors we have so far that we can rely on are Golden Globes and Critics' Choice.
Yeah.
And I say like, rely on because they're not really industry voters. They're voted on by different people like journalists for Golden Globes and Critics' Choice for Critics' Choice members. But
Um,
I think What Was I Made For might win the category, but watch out for I'm Just Ken.
Let me ask you this. This is interesting. Do you think that because they perform once again for the past, I would say 5 or 7 years, the Oscars have always gone over their time allotted. Okay, last year was 3 hours and 45 minutes or whatever. Do you think that actually performing the song, what and seeing a musical number in the movie and actually saying, "Oh, this would translate really good to the Oscars," do you think that would
Mhm.
have something to do with it, or are they going to perform all of these songs, or what do you think?
I think they could potentially perform all the songs. I mean, now that this is a nominee and I'm Just Ken is a nominee and a certain someone is nominated too for supporting actor, I think they're going to have to be handcuffed to go on stage and actually perform this at the Oscars.
Yeah,
Because I'm pretty sure he didn't want to. I'm pretty sure this person didn't want to do it for City of Stars, but now it's like, okay, you got to do it this time. You can't get out of this one.
yeah, yeah,
Time to collect it. Time to give the devil his due.
yeah. Um, so okay, let us. So we're gonna go to. We'll move on here, and we're gonna do another one. Um, okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to go to best adapted screenplay. Now, this is interesting because now I already know your winner, but I want you to tell the viewers here. But
So
moreover than that, like it's interesting because Barbie actually. So our nominees, I should say, are American Fiction, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. Now, originally, it was thought that Barbie was going to go into original.
yes,
And when it didn't, and they said, well, we're going to move it to um, adapted. And that
Mhm.
kind of changed things up a little bit. Anyways, what do you think should win? What do you think will win? And do you think there's a reason why Barbie moved to adapted? So, first,
he.
what do you think should win?
So before I even get to that, we also need to talk about the elephant in the room here. Killers of the Flower Moon missed the
Missed.
adapted screenplay lineup.
Yeah.
I will say, yeah, it sucks that it missed, but it gave us something like The Zone of Interest in for adapted screenplay, which is a film that they typically wouldn't go for in this kind of lineup. But I mean, yeah, and I just saw Zone of Interest this past week, and I had to drive all the way to Philly and back and to see it, but it was a very deserving, like all the Oscar nominations Zone of Interest got. It was so deserved, and we'll talk more about it later on in the show. As for why Barbie moved to adapted, or went from original to
Right.
adapted,
Right.
so the thing is, the Academy has really weird standards in terms of what they will qualify for original or adapted. Think of the year of Whiplash. Think of Moonlight, where they like Whiplash is really a big example. And I talked about this on my show called the Lone Screenplay Nominee Podcast, where if you ever get a chance, check out some episodes after the show. Where myself and a guest, we were talking. It was Zeddy and I, Nick Zednick and I. We were talking on the Nightcrawler episode how Whiplash was a really weird incident where that film was an original script. In order to get funding, they had to take a page or two out, like a scene or two out and make it as a short film. And then, that came out first and then they made the movie because of the financing. And the Academy said, nope, you're considered an adapted screenplay by our standards. Now, what happened here with Barbie is it's an IP, it's an intellectual property that they're taking. They're using the characters' names such as Barbie, Alan, Ken, even like the names of the costumes, I'm pretty sure, in the film. And they're using that as their source material, so to speak. And that's why it's in the adapted screenplay lineup. And to be fair, Warner Brother, and also if you see in the credits too, it says based on, when you see in the credits, it says based on Barbie by Mattel. And I'm like, okay, that technically is an adapted screenplay because it is credited in the title. The only thing, the one thing I will say about the screenplay category, at least for this one, is it will be a little bit tricky to know what is our like quote unquote winner, because we don't have WGA anymore. That'll be after the Oscars. In fact, Oscar nominations are going to be out like February for WGA, and then the winners will be announced in April. And they're doing this because of the Writers Guild deadlines, sort of uh, conflicting with the strike that was going on. And they're really the only guild that deserves to actually go after the Oscars, because not only does it make it a fun category to predict, but also it gives them enough time to actually allow other films be submitted for said categories, especially in the film categories. Now, long story short, if you want to ask me who I think is going to win and who I think should win, I personally think of the lineup that we have here, which is a really good adapted screenplay lineup for sure. I still think right now American Fiction is our adapted screenplay winner. And the fact that it did well here, it got nominated for picture, score, it got in for 2 acting categories. I think that this is the type of film, even like when you watch the movie, it honestly has felt like to me the whole season, the adapted screenplay category will probably go to American Fiction, because Cord Jefferson has been campaigning his ass off the whole season. He's been everywhere. He has been, ever since, like it premiered at, I think it was TIFF. It won the audience prize. And he's been like the most consistent thing. He even got into BAFTA. And I just feel like it might be a case of what happened with Nomadland a couple of years ago, where we already know, Chloe Zhao / Christopher Nolan's going to win director. So maybe let's give the screenplay prize to someone else, and they have a bunch of things to go for. And this is reminding me a lot of, I'm not sure if you're getting the same feeling of this too, David, but this is reminding me a lot of what happened with Coda, where in such a stacked year with you got The Lost Daughter, Dune, all these other films, Power of the Dog, and another one that they nominated, Drive My Car was another one.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all going to be so hungry, hungry power of like, which, big contenders should we go for? Whereas just like Coda, American Fiction is more of a broadly stated film that appeals more to the voters as a whole. So I have a feeling that there's going to be people turned off by Barbie. There's going to be some voters turned off by Poor Things for whatever reason. Same thing with Zone of Interest, because of its slow art house, cinema kind of burn it is. And I really think American Fiction is probably going to be our adapted screenplay winner. And again, this is a really good lineup,
Yeah.
but I personally would be totally okay with it being our winner.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
So this is kind of an upset, and I'm not saying this would happen. I still like, Giamatti to win. Do you think that if American Fiction won adapted screenplay,
yeah,
what are the odds that there's a Best Actor winner for I'm blanking on his name.
Cillian Murphy.
Yeah. What do you think of the odds that out of left field? Because right now, at the very beginning, okay, Cillian Murphy was a favorite.
Yeah.
And then Paul Giamatti ended up winning a couple. He won the Globe. He won the
Critics'
CCA.
Choice.
And so people were like, okay, well, he won one. He might. And he didn't. And then he ended up winning the second one. And was like, oh, okay. He's starting to really pick up momentum. By the way, I love his celebration. Anybody who's seen it,
yeah,
he goes in and out. Anyways, the point is that if that were to win, okay, if that were to win, do you think there's a chance that the Best Actor would be an upset?
We have to see what SAG and BAFTA goes for, because I've always said Critics' Choice and Golden Globes, they're not industry voters. However, they can turn the tide on said actors. I need to see what SAG goes for, because that's we learned a lesson last year that the final acting precursor, most of the times they go for said actors at the Oscars. We saw that with Brendan Fraser. We saw that with Jamie Lee Curtis. So if SAG goes all in on Cillian Murphy for lead actor, then yes, I will predict him, because the whole season I've been thinking to myself, even though Oppenheimer is probably gonna win, spoilers, picture and director, it might get Downey Jr. his Oscar. I just can't buy Murphy yet as a winner, because I need to see him win these televised prizes. Um, and I've been saying ever since like a week or so ago, it was the day before Critics' Choice, and David knows this. I'm pretty sure I told him, I definitely told a bunch of people that Giamatti has the opportunity to actually win, especially if the older Academy voters are going to go in on the holdovers. It doesn't have to go for screenplay or picture if it's undeniable for Oppenheimer. And for anyone saying, well, Cillian Murphy has to win, he's the face of the movie, we said that about Michael Keaton for Birdman, and look what happened. He lost to a favored an actor, a performance that was much more favored by older voters. So
speaking of dedication, check this out. I've seen all 30 of the 33 Oscar nominated movies, excluding shorts. Good for you.
I'm curious to know what other 3 you're missing.
That's dedication. Okay, so let's move on. So now we're gonna go to a different one, production design.
Okay.
Now I think Barbie wins 3 Oscars. Okay, I think it's production design, I think it's costume, and I think it's original song. One of the original songs. Mm-hmm. So our nominees are Barbie, aforementioned Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, which, by the way, this is its second. I think it got 3 overall. Its second nomination we've talked about. Oppenheimer and Poor Things. Once again, Poor Things in the mix. What do you like, and who do you think should win?
I also want to point out, and I'm only bringing this up because we saw a big surprise in All Quiet on the Western Front winning production design. Every production design winner, and again, pending the industry voters, every production design winner we have seen since Mad Max Fury Road, every one of them had a sound nomination. And let me ask you this, David. Which one of these is the only one with the sound nomination?
I think it's Poor Things.
Nope. Oppenheimer.
Ah.
That's the only one that has a sound nomination. So if there is any kind of upset that shows us, oh, they love Oppenheimer, they're just going to give her the prize, that's the one to look out for. So I will say for now, I'm predicting Barbie to potentially win, but I am keeping my eyes locked on Oppenheimer as a whole. Because like I said, this could be a big night for Oppenheimer. And even if you look at the nomination tally, it's like, because again, like after last year, I can't say, oh, the production design category is going to go here. I have to, it's like after I noticed that stat last year, I'm like, I'm going to put this in my pocket. I want to see what happens next year at the Oscars. And I want to see what happens with this one too. So,
I think Oppenheimer has a shot as well. It does. It does have a shot.
And the other thing too is that since 2020, or since the year that Mank won production design and costume and cinematography, they've been very lazy, in my opinion, even though, one or two of them may have been deserving of it. But production design and cinematography have gone to the same movie 3 times already. Mank, Dune, All Quiet on the Western Front. And Oppenheimer's already a front runner for cinematography. So there's a really good chance. Shit, I might actually have to predict Oppenheimer for production design. Yeah, man. All right. I think I convinced myself.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens with the industry. Like I said, I want to see where the Guilds and the BAFTA go for.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is another one. So right now, today, I have Barbie, as I said, winning 3. Okay. I have Barbie winning 3, as I said, best original song, best production design, best costume. I have the holdovers today winning 4. Best picture, I know I said that, don't choke. Best picture, best actor in Paul Giamatti, best supporting actress, and we're going to get to her in a couple minutes, and best original screenplay.
Yeah.
I have Oppenheimer winning 7 awards.
Yeah.
And I have to believe that this is one of those that it's not going to win, but it's going to clean up.
Yeah, again, well, when we get to more of these categories, I will be delving into some of my thoughts and to why some of
So
which might be a crazy thing for you to do right now to predict, but we'll get to some of them.
yeah. So now we're gonna start to get into juicy stuff. Now the fun begins, guys. Everybody, the first couple hours of the show, it's like, oh, okay, we don't care about editing, we don't care about cinema. We just show us the meat and potatoes. Okay, we're getting the meat and potatoes right now. But we're gonna give you a couple of appetizers before we get into the entree. Best supporting actor. Now, I think that this is a I don't want to say runaway, but this is kind of a lock for me. But we are going to go through it.
Yeah,
Sterling Brown, which, by the way, I think a lot of people didn't have him on the bingo card.
I predicted
Okay,
him.
there you go. This is
I
why we
predicted
have.
him.
See, this is why we have you on the show. Okay,
Yep.
Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon. Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer. Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo, which, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, this is his second Oscar nomination. His first was for Spotlight back in 2015. Am I correct
No, no,
about
no.
that?
He's been nominated 4 times in a row,
Oh, okay. So
altogether.
once
Yeah,
again, so it's been almost 10
yeah,
years in between. So
yeah,
those are our
I-
five. So who do you
yeah.
think should win, and who do you think will win?
I find it hilarious that Ruffalo, I think so far, has been nominated for has been nominated for an Oscar for every Best Picture nominee he's in. Kids Are All Right, Spotlight. Oh no, Foxcatcher wasn't a Best Picture nominee. I'm sorry, and then the other one was Poor Things. So Downey Jr. is probably going to win the Oscar. He has been campaigning the most of the Oppenheimer cast members. He has been there through and through. He is a 3-time nominee right now. He has this somewhat of an overdue narrative. He also is the one that has the most talked about performance of the cast, or at least of the main cast, I should say, because there's other really great ones like Alden Ehrenreich and Jack Quaid and Benny Safdie and other ones. But I think Robert Downey Jr. is probably going to win the category at the Oscars. As far as if I could say real quick with Sterling K. Brown, I actually have been predicting him for a while, maybe about a month or so, and especially ever since I saw it, not this past weekend, but the weekend before when I saw American Fiction. And I remember coming out of that movie and I'm thinking to myself, anytime Sterling K. Brown is on screen, I just had the biggest smile on my face because he's so fun. He's energetic. He has such a you kind of feel for this character a bit, even though his storyline, without going into too much, can be a bit cliched and formulaic for some. But I was really impressed with what he did. And all it takes, we learned, for people like Dominic Sessa or Charles Melton. Well, for the case of why Sessa missed in general, if I can go on a little tangent here.
Sure, absolutely.
Dominic Sessa missed because this was his acting debut. Yes, The Holdovers was strong enough to get into 5 nominations, but for Dominic Sessa to get in, he would have had a couple of acting credits on his belt. That's why Lucas Hedges got
Oh
in
yeah,
for
I mean
Manchester by
that's
the Sea.
understandable. That's
Um,
completely understandable.
and as far as Charles Melton, why he missed, the film, look, May December was just not a strong enough film. It only got in for original screenplay at the Oscars, which, by the way, I will cover on the show. I have a guest already in talks with who will do the episode. We might do it right after the Oscar winners are announced, maybe like within around that time, but it's TBA for the moment. But as I said, Downey Jr. he's going to win this. I feel right now, but it's a good lineup. I must say, like even though sure Defoe missed. I mean, I would have liked to have seen Defoe get in, but you know what? It's a really good lineup, and this might even be my favorite performance from Ruffalo of his like Oscar nominations I've seen so far.
Speaking of, I will be furious jumping of joy if Mark Ruffalo wins. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
Yeah, Ruffalo's
so
probably not going to win, but anyways, go ahead.
here's yeah. So the story I have goes all the way back to 2015 watching the Oscars. I still remember this crystal clear like it was the other day. Now, anybody who remembers that year, that was a big year, but there was one performance in particular for supporting actor, and that was a stacked year too. Okay,
Mhm.
we had Spotlight, we had Steve Jobs, we had Bridge of Spies, we had a ton of other stuff,
Yeah.
and of course, we had a little movie from boxing movie. It was called Creed.
Yep.
And anybody who remembers this knows that Stallone was getting up there, and the Academy likes to just, I hate to say it, throw people a bone. Okay, but that's what they do.
Hmm.
And he had won the CCA and he had won the Globe. And going into the Oscars that year, it was okay.
He's got a
It
shot.
looks like he's got a shot. He's not the he's almost the perennial favorite.
Mhm.
And the way scheduling ended up being and everything else, the Oscars was right around the corner, and I said, okay, cool. And so we got the Best Supporting Actor, and they, I think they did the clips back then, but anyways, they and the winner is, and I'll never forget it, Mark Rylance for
Yes.
Bridge of Spies, and I'm not kidding. When I say my jaw hit the floor, I had to literally pick it up with my other hand.
Yeah.
I went, now, I had seen Bridge of Spies in the theater. Okay. I had seen, you know, I had seen Creed. I had seen Bridge of Spies. I went, okay, I'm going to, but what?
Hmm.
I was baffled. And, okay. And, if you're going to weren't going to give it to Stallone, give it to Ruffalo. And I thought to myself, okay. So about 2 or 3 months later, I was flipping through the channels, and Bridge of Spies was on like Showtime. I said, you
Yeah.
know what? I'm going to give it another chance. I Academy Award winners in it, Tom Hanks, but I'm going to give it another chance. I sat down and I watched the whole thing.
Hmm.
I didn't like it. And
Hmm.
it has always rubbed me the wrong way every time I see the Best Supporting Actor.
Well,
That
yeah. And
how could that happen? And listen, upsets happen all the time, guys. We
yeah.
know this. But it was just one of those things so out of left field that because if people were going to rank the movies, they're like, okay, well, this is probably like a 5. And I mean, that'd be like Jeffrey Wright winning a Best Actor this year.
Yeah.
Nobody, while the performance is fantastic, nobody has him on the bingo card.
Yeah.
Okay, they would rather give it to Bradley Cooper rather
Well,
than
we'll get
Jeffrey
to that
Wright.
category in a minute.
But the point of the story is this, guys. Number one, the Oscars are completely unpredictable. Number two, I remember Best Supporting Actor, and that's the story that just rubs me the wrong way every time I see nominations. And number three, once we started to get into Best Supporting Actor and Best Supporting Actress, when we get into actress here in a minute, these are stacked.
Yeah.
There wasn't a bad performance.
Well, I still haven't seen Naiad yet, but that'll be pending. But I think the big issue that Creed was it Stallone had was he was a lone acting nominee. He wasn't. If your film isn't in the Best Picture lineup, let alone has multiple nominations, your film is going to be shut out probably as in the acting categories at least. Because there were a bunch of actors going against Stallone, and Rylance actually picked up the BAFTA, which was a um industry prize.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So
so
it was
yeah,
just, still one of those that you remember after all these years. And it's been almost 10 years.
yeah, and I
But
was shocked by that too. But yeah,
yeah. Anyways, okay. So speaking of supporting actor, now we are going to move to the flip side of the coin.
yeah,
And I think is one of those. This is one of the 4 locks I was talking about. So we
yeah.
have Emily Blunt, okay, for Oppenheimer.
Hmm.
Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, which I was so happy to see her get in. America Ferrera for Barbie. I think this one was a surprise to some people.
Yeah, I
Jodie
didn't predict it, but
Foster,
I'm not surprised.
yeah, Jodie Foster for Naiad, and Divine Joy
Joy
Randolph for The
Randolph.
Holdovers.
Yeah.
So, as I said, this is a lock for me. One of the 4 locks I was talking about. I have Divine winning this,
She
going away. What do you
unless
think?
unless she loses SAG and BAFTA, Divine Joy Randolph is going to win the Oscar for this. It's the one that people have commented on, even people who've been very lukewarm on the Holdovers. They find her to be the one of the best parts or one of the bright spots about that movie. But Sure. Yeah, I guess. Um, yeah, that's my prediction for that
Yeah, I
category.
mean, I don't I Emily Blunt was good, but it
She
wasn't.
was, but like, yeah, this was very
Yeah,
much
it
like
wasn't.
she's filling the Rachel McAdams in Spotlight, where it's like you're finally in a popular movie that's a Best Picture contender or top three at least, and you haven't been recognized for your talents for all your years. So here is your Oscar nomination. You're playing a real life person who's an alcoholic and has a few big moments throughout the film. But yeah,
Who do you think, if you weren't going to put America Fiera in there, who would you have put in there for that fifth spot?
oh, easily Penelope Cruz for Ferrari. I thought
Okay.
she gave a really good performance. It's not quite as strong as what she did in Parallel Mothers a few years ago, but anytime she was on screen in Ferrari, I was like, holy shit, she's really good. And there's a reason why she has uh the acting chops. But yeah, no, I would have easily nominated her over a couple of these people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, Jodie Foster's a two-time Academy Award winner. We know what she can do.
Yeah.
You know, America Ferrera was phenomenal. I mean, she had that monologue, which really was the
Wh-
thing.
Which is why she got the nomination
Yeah,
because everyone kept
exactly.
talking about that moment. I'm like, yeah,
Oppenheimer
okay.
was, I mean, Emily Blunt was okay. I've seen her in better things,
Sure.
and I think just her winning the precursors and everything else. I think this, she runs away with this. Okay, guys,
Randolph, yeah.
now the fun begins. Now the fun begins, and we are going to start with, and I'm
Visual
going to let
effects.
you take this over. Okay, this is going to be your thing. Um, get ready, guys.
Oh, yes. All
Get
right.
ready because this
Okay.
one is this one shocked. I would okay shocked. How do I say this?
All right.
Surprised. I think a lot of people. I have my thoughts, but he has a lot of thoughts, and I want to have him definitely expound because he has the more experience. I am going to read off the nominees, and then we'll go
Sure.
from
Go
there.
ahead. Go
So,
ahead.
Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon, and I actually have a statistic that I told him off air, and I want to tell you guys. Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan, Poor Things, The Zone of Interest, Jonathan Glazer. Now, before Matthew goes into his soliloquy, I want to give you guys a couple of little statistics. Here's a big one. We've had a lot of great directors over the past, I would say, 50, 60 years.
A
Okay.
lot of good ones.
A lot of good ones. This is Martin Scorsese's 10th. I didn't stutter when I say that. 10th nomination. Now, think about, he is on the Mount Rushmore, if you will. Okay. And I'm going to list off a couple of other directors that are also on the Mount Rushmore. Now, by the way, he passed his good friend
Spielberg.
Spielberg. Okay. Here are some of the names that he's passed. Billy Wilder, David Lean, who had 7, Woody Allen had 7, Frank Capra had 6, John Ford had 5, Alfred Hitchcock, who some say is one of the best directors of all time, and he is, Francis Ford Coppola with 4, Stanley Kubrick, Full Metal Jacket, Doctor Strangelove, Eyes Wide Shut, and one Clint Eastwood, who is 3.
Mhm.
And by the way, Eastwood's won Best Director. Same with Scorsese.
He's only
Scorsese
won
ended up
one.
winning back in 2006 with The Departed. I can't believe
Yes.
that was 17 years
Yeah. It's nuts.
But anyways, there's a major name that's not there. And I'm going to
And I
let
know
Matthew go for it.
So
The show is all yours.
I first want to say, put the camera on me. Put the camera on me, because yeah. So I first want to say, rest in peace, Bradley Cooper's chance of winning an Oscar this year. The only way that he was ever going to win for an Oscar was if he also got in for director. So my fate is sealed. So we'll get to that some other time. I'm a little bit surprised Alexander Payne missed, but at the same time, knowing this branch, which I'll get into in a minute, I'm not surprised Alexander Payne missed for the holdovers, and he is now the uh, the most recent victim, or person, so to speak, or victim, I should say, of a person that got in DGA and BAFTA but missed at the Oscar lineup since Bradley Cooper for A Star Is Born, which is hilarious. Um, but yes, the quote unquote snub was Greta Gerwig for Barbie. Now, I want to give a shout out to Josh Parham from Next Best Picture podcast. If he's out there, I would give him a big old hug, and I will forever bow down to him for the rest of my life, because here's the thing. Ever since the Academy has gone for more international voters, they've been very stingy. They've been very picky with their, picks. They want to go for a directorial effort that's more artsy, that's more stylish, that's more snob, that appeals to the snob voters, so to speak. And Greta Gerwig missing director here does not surprise me, because they do not like populist movies. Now, you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, Matt, Oppenheimer is a populist film, right? No. It is a film that was made with the intention of a thinking man's movie that accidentally stumbled into being a nearly billion-dollar movie. Barbie, from the moment they said go, was always intended to be a money maker. It was always intended to be a movie that would be making money. And it's the kind of film that, even though Greta Gerwig put her heart and soul into it and actually tried to do something different with it, they still think you're a populist pick, no matter what. And I just think that, it just seems like, even the way that she directs the movie, it's not up to the standards of the Academy Awards. Like, this isn't the kind of directing that they would go for. It sucks that they did nominate her, but I'm not really surprised she missed, because it's just, they don't go for this kind of directing to begin with. Even like a named director like Alexander Payne, had a movie that was shot and directed like a 70s style of film, but it missed the director lineup still. And it just shows to me that with this director lineup, you need to have such artistry. You can't make a populist movie. You have to appeal to the international, snobby, artsy, pretentious side of voters. Because if you don't, and your movie is, like I said, something like A Star Is Born, Barbie, even Dune, Miss Director, and that got 10 nominations and won 6 Oscars. There's looking back, and ever since Dune, I've always said, I can't predict a populist movie for director anymore. I can't predict Top Gun Maverick to get in for director. I can't predict Avatar to get in, because even if you get in on the DGA lineup and BAFTA, even if you got all the precursors, you could still miss. Like, Bradley Cooper missed for A Star Is Born, and that was a populist movie, although there were other reasons why he missed to begin with. But it's just like, they will never go for a populist movie. And I think the only way that Gerwig could ever come back to the director race, in my opinion, is if she does have a artsy kind of movie, like, take a page out of Jane Campion's book and do something like Power of the Dog. And I just, I've been saying this for months. Like, this is not the kind of directing they will go for. It's sad. It's unfortunate. At the same time, though, I have to say, I've been watching all the Oscar nominations, or at least most of them, since the year Birdman won Best Picture. This might be my favorite director lineup of all time, since Shape of Water won director. Like, I really love this lineup. Like, Anatomy of a Fall, really good directing, and she, Justine Triet. I think I might have butchered her name. She's French, but she did a hell of a job directing the movie. Especially with, you're on mute, by the way. Yeah, you're on mute.
2 quick things. Number one,
Yeah.
it didn't even get into Best International Film.
Yeah,
That's something else.
Well, and I'll get to why in a minute.
And number 2, okay, it was interesting because you brought it up. Gerwig actually got in on the DGA, but she missed the Oscar. Now, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my question. Let's go back to Adapted real quick. Okay, do you think, because she missed at director,
Because she,
do you think that she would? I know makeup is not the right word, but do you think they would actually say, "Hey, listen, you didn't get nominated for Best Director. We want to give you. And by the way, I think Barbie's going to win 3 Oscars, and I've already said that. Do you think they would give her for Best Adapted?
No, she's got an uphill battle already. Even in original screenplay, I always thought in original her best chance was 3 or 4. And now she's like, I think she might be like 4 or 5, dead last.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
like she has such an uphill battle. Like even the older voters, I just don't see them going for Barbie an adapted screenplay. They might go for with other categories, but I just don't see Gerwig getting in or winning this year for the Oscar. As far as why Anatomy of a Fall didn't make it in for international film, well, first off, it wasn't even submitted for international film. France fucked that up. And they decided to submit Taste of Things, and that didn't even make it on here. So once that happened, Neon was like, okay, you know what? We're going to push really hard for Justine Triet to get in for director. And we're going to make sure that she gets in for writing, original screenplay, which I think right now she actually is going to win original screenplay. Unless The Holdovers is a threat to win Best Picture, Anatomy of a Fall is probably going to be our original screenplay winner. And like I really have to commend Neon. They did such a great job with making sure like, oh, just because you're out of international film or you're not submitted, we're still getting you in for picture, director, and screenplay. Like they did a really good job, but I was not expecting them to do that. And also too, Anatomy of a Fall did exactly what Triangle of Sadness did last year with Ruben Östlund. Remember that director surprise
hmm
nomination we got?
yep,
So what I mean by is just like Triangle of Sadness, Anatomy of a Fall got in for the Cannes Film Festival, premiered there. I'm pretty sure it won the Palme d'Or as well there, which is like their big Best Picture prize, so to speak. And it won the European Film Award prize for Best Director over Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest. And the other stat that I have to say still continues even ever since the year Nomadland won Picture and Director at BAFTA. Even though they have a whole jury vote and they have their own like 6 nominations for the major categories like director and acting and so on, they were able to get they were able to get 3 of their directing nominees at the Oscars in at the BAFTAs: Justine Triet, Christopher Nolan, and Jonathan Glazer. And I just thought to myself, from now on until I see this stat break, I'm forever predicting that. So whatever 3 gets in for BAFTA, they're going on to the Oscars.
yeah,
And then, but like I said, this is a fantastic lineup.
yeah. By the
Anatomy
way,
of a Fall. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
by the way, this is the second one of my locks. If no one doesn't win this,
Oh,
and I
he's
kid
winning
about
this.
this, if no one doesn't win this, there needs to be an investigation.
No, he's got this.
Oh, I know he does.
Yeah.
But
I,
so this is
yeah.
where the cream really starts to rise to the top. And you touched upon it. The Academy loves artsy films. And while Barbie made $1.5 billion and it was a worldwide sensation and everything else, the simple premise of, and there was another snub, I'm going to get to it in a couple minutes,
Mhm.
that at the end of the day, look, this is, I got to say, guys, okay, this is a movie about making the nuclear bomb. This isn't
Yes.
supposed to be a, you know, action film or a, you know, feel good movie. This
Yeah.
was telling the story of the guy who made the nuclear bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why this got 13 nominations, led everything, was because it was crafted well, it was written well, you had a fantastic lead actor, and you had a director that had made not only a ton of movies, but a ton of good movies.
Yeah.
Dunkirk, Interstellar, and I think some consider, I go back and forth depending on what day it is. The Dark Knight is his master class. This is right up there. Okay, that's who this is, and he has just missed
Mm-hmm.
every single time. The fact that Gerwin missed just shows you what the Academy is looking for on a
The
yearly basis.
the
And the
yeah.
last thing I'll say is this: we've gone 30 be 31 years, okay, or close to 31 years, 1992. Maybe my math's wrong. Do you know, and I'm going to ask you this, and I know you know this off the top of your head, Matthew. Do you know the
Oh,
last Big Five winner?
it's Silence of the Lambs, One
Correct.
Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and It Happened One Night.
Correct. So the thing is, this is the last. We haven't had a Big Five. Everything Everywhere All at Once came that close. It didn't have
Yeah.
Best Actor last year.
And I don't think we're ever getting a Big
No.
Five ever again.
Okay. The
Um,
fact, and that just shows you how special one or Silence of the Lambs is.
mhm,
It was in. I mean, Demi Hopkins. That was his first Oscar.
yeah.
Jodie Foster, her second Oscar. Um, just unbelievable and how special that film was. But that was in a different time.
Yeah.
That wasn't, you look back at that film and go, well, how the hell did that win 5 Oscars? Because it was a completely different Academy back then.
Yeah. And
So, th- that being said,
mhm,
this is a film that, look, I get it, and it sucks. It
yeah.
really does. I'm not gonna lie. I think a lot of people had Gerwin in there. She got into DGA. They're like, okay, it was 50-50. But
I'll
yeah,
go a step I'll go a step even further as to what I've been predicting ever since the BAFTA snub. She's this year's Denis Villeneuve. She got
yes,
in for
for
Critics'
Dune.
Choice, Golden Globe, DGA, and she missed BAFTA.
So I mean,
Um,
that's a great example because Dune was. And by the way, now we'll talk about this next year.
yeah.
But I think Dune coming out in March, if Dune got 10 nominations last time, I really, and we
It
don't have that big of a lineup this year. We've got a
yeah.
couple. I think Dune's going to clean up next year.
We'll see. It's a populist film, so to
I
speak,
think
but
they
we'll
give him
we'll see what
his
happens.
nomination this time.
I don't know. But the
But,
other the other factor,
that's next
yeah,
year.
that we got to put a pin
That's
in that.
neither
But
here nor there. But I think
I
we're both agreeing on one thing. Christopher
Nolan's winning
Nolan's going to win
director.
the Oscar for Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I also find it funny too that it took Nolan years for him to try to get into director, and all it took was Dunkirk and Oppenheimer, two World War II epics, to get in for director. Meanwhile, Gerwig is sitting on the outskirts of like being this year's Nolan, especially with Barbie getting in for like 8 nominations, but it missed director and editing like Inception did. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
so like I said, I think the only way Gerwig gets in for director is if she does like an artsy kind of movie.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
if we'll probably circle back around to this again, but I think the only way Cooper also gets in for director is if he actually directs the movie, like just stay behind the camera and let
Hmm.
someone else be the acting talent.
Yeah.
Because I think him getting 12 nominations now, like he's gotten like most of them, if not, well, actually most of the major above the line categories, except for director. Um, but I think that's the only way that Cooper will ever get nominated for director is he has to just direct the movie itself and let someone else take over the, acting
Yeah.
pool. So
Okay. So speaking of actress, let's move. Now we're going to get into the fun stuff. Now we're going to go into the last three. This is where the fun really begins.
yes.
Place your money down, ladies and gentlemen. The table is open. We have Annette Bening for Naiad, Killers of the Flower Moon for Lily Gladstone, Sandra Huller, I believe I'm pronouncing that,
Yeah, I could.
Carrie Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things. Now, who do you think will win, and who do you think should win? And I have a statistic about Emma Stone here in a minute. Well, while you're thinking, I'll just tell you right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Emma Stone is only the second woman to ever be nominated for acting in a Best Picture for the same film. The last time that happened, who was it?
Frances McDormand for Nomadland.
Very good. Daily Double.
Yep.
Okay. So, I think right now, I gotta go with Emma Stone.
I do too. And I will, here's why. On the off chance, so Poor Things, I think will be divided by older voters. But if they want to give the film something, it's going to be Poor Things for lead actress. Because Emma Stone, and I've talked with a buddy. I want to give a shout out to Zeddy about this because we were talking about this after we recorded our episode for my own podcast. how this was like back in August, September, how we thought to ourselves, Searchlight, they're gonna do something big. They're like in terms of awards, they're gonna put a big stamp somewhere. We just didn't know where it was gonna be, whether it was gonna be like a best picture contender, maybe director, maybe writing, maybe acting. We knew they were gonna do something big because Searchlight has a really good history in the past of these kind of like, above the line winners and do pretty good. I mean, hell, they got Slumdog Billionaire and Birdman and 12 Years a Slave and even Nomadland Picture. But I think with the way the nomination tally is today and the fact that Emma Stone made it on the BAFTA long list or BAFTA itself, I think she has a really good shot at winning her second Oscar. And
She's
Lily
only
Gladstone,
37.
yeah,
That
37.
tells you something. I mean, you know, yeah,
No, 35.
35. Okay,
Yeah.
so I stand corrected. But
Um,
here's the thing, like it's amazing that and by the way, anybody who's seen Kill It, I thought Louis Gladstone was incredible. But I
she's
think
really
the
good.
thing
Yeah.
is that at the end of the day, um, I mean, Kerry Mulligan. Now, Maestro didn't really. I mean, besides it got Best Actor or Best Actor for Bradley, and a couple others. I just and she was good in it. I'm not. I mean, I
Yeah.
watched it and she was very good in it. But I think that, and I don't think you know Annette Bening for Nayad. I'm
She's
not.
not winning.
Yeah, she's not winning. Okay, and I just got to believe this is Emma Stone's time, and
Yeah.
that just goes to show you. I'm leading Emma Stone as well with Gladstone potentially winning. Yeah.
The the other thing too we have to watch out for, as I said earlier, watch what SAG does.
Hmm.
Because if SAG tips, that's the last televised acting precursor, they go for Emma Stone, she's winning the Oscar. In
And by
fact,
the
I would
way,
even I would also say if she wins BAFTA and SAG, she's winning the Oscar because usually when you win your second Oscar for the acting categories, you do a grand sweep with the televised awards.
hmm there's a name missing here that
Yes, I'm
and
glad you
that's
brought her
and
up.
that's the thing that everybody was like, "Oh my god, where is it?"
Mhm.
We talked about director and Greta, and there's a name that's being omitted here, and it's Margot Robbie.
Yes.
And so, how you know we got two more categories to go to, but it's like there's really something. Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was so that when I said it was a little bit of a surprise, yeah, that this was the big surprise if you're going to really get to it, because I think a lot of people had Margot Robbie on their bingo card and really said, okay, I don't think people really had Annette Bening
Mhm.
um, or Carrie Mulligan, to be frank. So yeah, I
I
think
mean,
for
yeah,
me right now, it's Emma Stone to win this.
the other thing too is that a lot of people have been saying like, "Oh, Maestro's, that it's losing a lot of steam here." It's like, no, film Twitter. Okay, first off, film Twitter and the industry are two different things.
Hmm.
Film Twitter just wanted Maestro to get snubbed entirely. Like they wanted Cooper to miss actor, they wanted Carey Mulligan to miss lead actress. And I've been saying this though for months that the industry will go for this movie. Now they may not give it wins like Barbie because Barbie's kind of having a hard time trying to get like above the line wins, but Maestro is beloved. Like you had
Yes.
Alfonso Cuarón, you had Spike Lee, you had Guillermo del Toro doing all these Q&As, even Steven Spielberg who produced the damn movie for Maestro, they were all going in on Maestro. And Ariana DeBose, I saw the other day, had tweeted or had shown on Instagram that she adored Maestro for what it was. Adele, loved it as
Yeah.
well. It's like the industry. If something like Don't Look Up, a movie that is despised by like critics and audiences, could get in for Best Picture, Maestro is going to get in for picture and screenplay. I also do think because the Barbie switching over from original to adapted may have helped Maestro's chances of getting in for screenplay too. Um, but yeah, Margot Robbie missing here does not shock me at all. In fact, I actually had her out for a while, and I got to point out to someone I think who was I think it was like Luke Harfield I think who pointed out I'm just pulling up his name real quick.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think
Uh,
this
Um,
is.
yeah. Well, anyway, so Luke pointed out online that um, it the thing, yeah, it's just the fact that like it's a genre bias performance. Like they
Yeah.
have a bias towards Margot Robbie's performance in Barbie, and it did feel very similar to what happened with Arrival, where she, even though Amy Adams is the face of that movie, they weren't willing to give Amy Adams the nomination because one, they much prefer these biopic performances that are a lot more showier, like Annette Bening, like Lily Gladstone, and Carey Mulligan. But it just seemed, like I said, it just seemed like they went for that kind of stuff. And Robbie was going to get in for a picture, if nothing else. Like, she's a producer on the damn movie too.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just like that. That was
Yeah.
really like clear cut and dry. It's like that's the reason why Robbie missed. It was because they much prefer these showier biopic performances than something like Robbie's performance in Barbie. And even people I've talked with who've seen Barbie, they always thought like Ryan Gosling was the standout, America Ferrera, the writing, the songs were standout, the production design, the costumes.
Yep.
Not Robbie though.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Okay. So we got two left,
yeah.
and so this is. I have my pick here, but we'll see what you're. I think we're in agreement on this. So
Yep.
Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. I know I have a pretty good idea who you're going to go with, but who are you going to go with?
Coleman Domingo. No, I'm kidding.
That's
No.
no.
I think the race is down to Giamatti and Murphy.
Yeah.
The only reason why I don't have the Holdovers predicted to win picture is the art. So in a preferential ballot era, only 2 films have won picture and lead actor. Can you guess what they were?
So only two.
Only 2 films have won picture and male lead actor at the Oscars since 2009. Do you know what they are?
No, not off the top of my head.
The King's Speech and The Artist.
Wow.
Everything else hasn't done it. Nothing else has done it. So right now I'm predicting Oppenheimer to win picture. And I've said this even when I came out of Oppenheimer. Cillian Murphy is not the type of performance they would go for. I would be, you know what? If SAG and BAFTA say otherwise, especially SAG, if they say, nope, we're giving it to Murphy, I will stand my ground and I will predict Murphy. But I think Giamatti has a really good shot at winning this. He is a character actor who's never been given his due. He hasn't been nominated since Cinderella Man. And the reason why he got nominated for Cinderella Man was because they fucked him over for Sideways. And that was also a really competitive year to begin with. And this year he's in a crowd-pleasing movie. It's appealing to the type of older voters that people will go for. And even though, yes, you have Domingo, you have Cooper, you have Murphy, all doing biopic performances, but I think the older Academy voters, and we've always talked about this, for as many international voters as they're, adding on and expanding, you still have the old white male voters still there. And it's almost like a tug and pull. We saw this last year with like Everything Ever All at Once, winning Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, all the acting prizes. But what was the second most wins of that year? All Quiet on the Western Front. Yes, it was an international movie, but it's a war film that appeals to the older voters. And I think this year, if there's anyone that has a shot at winning, just as many, well, air quotes, like just as many as on like just a few. I think The Holdovers is probably its best chance of, being a like potential spoiler for picture. But Giamatti, like I said, just watching that movie and even just watching snippets of it again, I'm like, yep, he's got all the stuff. He's got all the juice here. He's also, it's a character arc as well over the film. It's like this curmudgeon character who by the end, the Academy older white voters be like, oh, but I'm sad. I feel so sad for Giamatti. Oh, like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But if Giamatti does win this, I'm not going to be angry. I'm fine with either of them winning, but if anything, Giamatti winning would just be like, all right, now he won't be considered like an underrated actor, so to speak. He'll actually have an Oscar. And unlike Cooper, we don't know when Giamatti will be back to the Oscar race because it took him so long to get nominated. Again, Cinderella Man was 2005 when it came out. So we're looking at almost 20 years since that film came out. So,
Yeah,
and whereas Cooper, he's got 12 nominations. He'll probably be back in the race, just like Paul Thomas Anderson was a couple of years ago with Licorice Pizza. So I think Cooper will be back in the race. But I'm warning you right now, if he wins an acting prize, David, it's probably going to be for an even worse performance than whatever film Twitter cited Maestro as, because it's it happened with Al Pacino, and it's happened with a lot of like really great actors
yep.
winning for like
Scent of a
undeserved
Woman.
Oscars.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
I'm
I
warning you right
gotta,
now.
yeah, I got Giamatti winning this.
Yeah,
I
for right
think
now,
that
yeah.
yeah. I mean, as you said, it depends on what SAG does and everything else. But if he wins SAG or BAFTA or both, I mean, it's just you can't deny he's gone through the whole thing and just cleaned up. So I think this is, and by the way, this is one of the fourth. This is the third of the four Oscars for the holdovers I have, and so that all leads up to the big one, and this is the big one.
Yes.
This is the biggest prize that they award every single year for the absolute best feature film of the year. And, you know, they went to 10 because of what happened with The Dark Knight. And, I mean, they can nominate up to 10. I don't know, maybe it's a hard 10. I think
So,
they should always go to 7.
yeah,
But here, I'll let you finish in just a minute. So here are
yeah,
your
sure.
nominees: American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, okay, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. Who wins?
So, for right now, I'm predicting Oppenheimer. I'm still predicting it for Best Picture, and I've been doing so since January. However, if there is a potential spoiler, it's going to be Holdovers. Um, the idea of that already winning supporting actress, possibility
And
of lead
possibly
actor.
and lead actor.
Yeah, the only way I will predict Holdovers winning screenplay and pictures, but well, actually, even I would say even bit further, if Holdovers is winning screenplay on the night of, Holdovers might win picture. And the only way I even see that happening right now is if PGA goes in on the Holdovers. There's a few uphill battles it has. No director nomination for Alexander Payne. Thank God he missed.
Well, don't. But here's the thing, though. The last time we had, I believe it's the only time we've had a Best Picture winner without a director was Argo.
No, you're forgetting two others: Green Book
Okay.
and Coda.
Okay. So I
Yeah,
mean, but it's happened. The point is, it's happened before.
yeah,
It's happened before.
it has.
So
And
I mean, it's not out of the realm um, that it's not out of the realm that it could happen again. Um, so right now, today, and I know this is a shock, I've got the holdovers winning. This is the fourth Oscar. I think that this is going to be round out the night because we already know it's going to win Best Supporting Actress. If it does take, and right now Giamatti is right now the front runner for actor, so that's really two. If it can win Best Original Screenplay, it's going to get a lot of momentum. I think the night is going to really belong to Oppenheimer in the holdovers. I think Oppenheimer wins 7 or 8. I think that the holdovers wins 4, and I think Barbie wins 3. But if it's all going to depend on what happens with the screenplay, as you said,
but the other
because
thing,
yeah, but
go ahead, finish your thought, and then
no, I
I'll
was just going to say I think that it's going to be very fascinating to see what happens. Everything is going to hinge. Everything is going to hinge on the screenplay.
Mhm.
If the holdovers win screenplay, it's going to win Best Picture.
So I'm not predicting it to win screenplay at the moment.
You're
The
going with
Holdovers.
American Fiction.
No, American Fiction is for
Yeah,
adapted.
adapted. I'm sorry.
Holdovers, I'm not predicting for original screenplay. I'm predicting right now Anatomy of a Fall is taking the category at the moment because couple factors. So for anyone thinking, and this is the reason why I'm waiting on PGA to see what happens with Holdovers. Is that the who was it? That for me, that film needed it like okay, so the original screenplay category, if you can just get the camera back on me for a minute. Yeah, like this, yeah, this is fine. The thing about me, or yeah, forget it. Talk to Her was the last film to win just BAFTA and then the Oscar for original screenplay. And ever since then, no one else has been able to do that in the original screenplay category. Nothing. So something like The Favorite, Licorice Pizza, they won just BAFTA in original screenplay and they lost. And even if Holdovers just wins BAFTA for original screenplay, and Oppenheimer wins the PGA prize, it's not going to be Holdovers winning screenplay.
Right. No,
And
I agree with you.
And the other thing about that too is that the original screenplay lineup, or just the screenplays in general, they're always given to these directors that have a hand in writing their own script. And with the case of original, we haven't had a non-director or a non-director winning winner for original screenplay since The King's Speech. So The King's Speech was written by David Seidler, who had no hand in directing it. Tom Hooper directed it. And ever since Woody Allen won for Midnight in Paris, who also directed and wrote the script, every original screenplay winner since then has gone to a director that has also write the script. And Anatomy of a Fall winning Golden Globe this past couple weeks really does bode well for its favors.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I really do think that if Anatomy of a Fall wins big, especially if it wins BAFTA, and Holdovers
puts
can't
it
even
right
win
in the
PGA.
mix.
I'm sorry.
That puts it right. No, if Anatomy of a Fall wins BAFTA, that puts it right in the mix.
Yeah, and I think what also helps its chances too is Oppenheimer being this, so far out as a front runner for picture, that the only two categories that they can give Holdovers in are the two acting categories, and then you have screenplay going to Anatomy of a Fall because you get Justine Triet, in for screenplay. And the other thing too is that no WGA, awards ceremony actually might help Anatomy of a Fall's chance at winning screenplay, because the only thing we have to rely on now is just BAFTA. We already had Critics' Choice, which they went to Barbie. They didn't even go for Holdovers, and Anatomy of a Fall wasn't even nominated in the original screenplay for Critics' Choice.
Yeah.
So I really do think that BAFTA might go for Anatomy of a Fall for screenplay. Especially if they want to send it home with something, and it's especially Triet campaigning her ass off the whole season. That's how I feel.
I think it's Oppenheimer by Romano with Giamatti winning actor. Yeah, no, I tend Oppenheimer right now is the favorite, and
for picture,
I think that for picture, Giamatti winning his Oscar is going to bolster its chances, but it's all going to depend on
PGA.
what just happens with the screenplay. I mean, obviously, SAG and the BAFTAs have something to do with that, but come Oscar night, it's all going to depend on what happens with this screenplay. If the Holdovers win screenplay, it's going to definitely bolster its chance for Best Picture. If it doesn't, that's not to say it couldn't do it. It's just a tougher road. So I think that is something else there. So, I mean, do you think there are any movies here that we've discussed here today that walk away and home with nothing?
So right now, as I'm looking through the nominations, there's only two I could think of right now. And look, last year we predicted 3 were going to happen, and 5 of them ended up going home empty-handed. So maybe that's another night, type of night. We don't know. So the 2 I'm predicting right now to walk away with nothing: Past Lives and Killers of the Flower Moon. Past Lives just has screenplay and picture. That's it. I'm glad it made it into the lineup to begin with, and I must say, of the years that I've been watching all the Oscar nominees for best picture, especially the last 2 years, this is easily the best 10 lineup I've seen in years. because
Really?
we don't have something like Elvis, which is a bullshit nominee. We don't have something like Elvis, which is not a good movie. And I just feel like with this lineup here that we have, even though I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't as in love with everyone else like Barbie or Past Lives or Holdovers, I still liked him enough. But it's a really good lineup because you also have a different crop of nominees to pick out, and literally you could find a movie here that everyone that could be like, yeah, I love this movie, I love
Now,
Maestro, or I love
here goes.
Oppenheimer.
This goes to the other question I had earlier. So, Margot missed Best Actress.
Yeah.
Greta missed Best Director. Okay. Gosling and American Ferrera get in,
Yeah.
supporting actor and actress respectfully. How does? And by the way, guys, there are 3 pictures here that are directed by women.
Yep. First time
Okay,
ever.
that's the first time it's ever happened. How does that happen? Okay, and this is the bigger the macro question. How do 3 pictures by women get in, and you only have um, you have this lineup here for director? Now you have a woman in there, and the
Yeah.
reason I bring this up is because a lot of people, including myself, thought Greta was going to get in, and this seems to be the sticking point. So the question is, what do we do? There are a couple of things we can do. Door number one is we expand the roster,
Which they're never gonna do.
which they're never going to do. Okay, they could have passed on Scorsese. That's a possibility.
No, because
But
Scorsese is like Spielberg last year, where he's a named director
he's
to
never going to
where
win. Scorsese is never
yeah,
going to win this.
yeah,
But
he's
it's the
never gonna win
recognition.
director. He's never gonna win director, but he's the kind of director that they always name check off of, like, like, okay, let's put him in the lineup
Right.
too, because he has such a unique voice and a unique style for that appeals to the older voters, even the international voters. Like, even though, yeah, like it missed BAFTA for like director and screenplay, Killers of the Flower Moon still got in picture there, and it got in for other categories. So I still think Scorsese would have made it in. Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things. It just sounded like, when you watch
I
that
mean, you're
movie.
not going to take out Nolan, so that means
No,
there's 2 spots left. So, getting back to what I was saying,
go ahead.
door number one is you expand the lineup. And by the way, if you do that, you're like, well, what about the 8th person? That's never going to happen.
No.
Door number two, okay, is you, I hate to use the word, mandate, okay, that if you do go to 7, okay, that you mandate at least 2 women get in there. Now, somebody said to me
It's
today, well, what if they're not good? But it's not, it's the principle,
yeah.
right? It's the principle of the matter. That's going, they're going to understand that they have to make films. And this is a perfect example of it, guys. Barbie was made $1.5 billion and missed out on director
Yeah.
and actress. So, that all being said, yes, you mandate that there's 2 women in there so they get more votes and everything else. Or number 3, because here's the thing. These old white guys, I'm going to call them what they are, old white guys, okay?
Mhm.
They're always going to be able to have more of the clout and the whatever else. You
Yeah.
get more people in, you get more women that are nominated, okay? They're going to know that, look, I have a good chance of making a nomination if I make a really solid, straight film. I mean, look at, Chloe Zhao when she won, okay? Jane Campion. I know, I know,
Yeah.
I
No, I
know,
know.
I know, I know that. But
Different
it's
years.
just, I understand. I get it. And every year is different. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that. But there's this elephant in the room that has to be corrected. Now,
Yeah.
why is it that, once again, we go back to Best Picture? Three are done by women. Only one gets in.
The reason why we got the lineup that we got, and again, they matched 10 for 10 with PGA, is because we had strikes with both WGA and SAG. We didn't have as much competition for films to get in, even stuff like Color Purple, and thank God Saltburn missed, which they could have easily done so to get into the lineup. But it really just seemed like these were all the films that we had to contend for. In fact, I'm looking through right now, at least like 4, maybe 5 of them were like international type movies.
Yeah,
So yeah, and I want to, if you don't mind, I want to go back to the director
yeah,
slide real quick. Um, the reason why I say and I'm actually glad Whip Smart brought up Glazer because watching that movie, and I also have to credit Josh Parham for this too. Watching that movie, The Zone of Interest, when you see it, it's a art house cinema slow burn with a capital S to its name. And yet, it's the kind of directing that they would go for. It's it did remind me a lot of what happened with last year. Ruben Östlund got in for Triangle of Sadness too. That was the kind that the branch would go for. I'm actually and you say, maybe we should, maybe we should blame the older white voters. I would argue the international voters are, quote unquote to blame because like I
and
said,
actually,
the
this
more
goes back. Go ahead and finish your thought, and I'll read the comment.
well, and because like the more international voters you bring in, the less likelier a populist film is going to get in for director. Like you're always going to get these like artsy, snobby, appealing films to the films. And again, like it just like this is like these are the 5 that I think were the ones that were are why they got in is because it appealed. All 5 of them appeal to the snobby voters like
Yeah,
and if we get more international directors, all it's just going to do is just exclude more populist movies
yeah. So
and yeah,
Whip Smart says that they also expanded the director branch to include more international directors. So why are people so surprised?
I think it's because of the fact that they were all hoping that Barbie would get in for director and that Greta Gerwig did such a good job with the movie. She did,
And she
honestly.
did.
But like I said, it just seemed like and also the worst case scenario would have been an all male lineup, which thank God we didn't do that. We went with the correct 5 that we
Yeah.
went for. Yes, I'm a little bit heartbroken Cooper didn't make it in, but you know what? If this is what we get to have that great lineup that everyone loves or most of us love, then I am totally down with this because this is, like I said, my favorite director lineup I've seen in years.
Is it fair to say that the director's branch doesn't like Gerwin? They
Now,
shipped her for Little Women in $1 billion movie. But
now,
okay, so I will say one thing: the money here has nothing to do with it.
yeah,
Okay, maybe nothing, not nothing, but very little to do with it. It's not like because here's the thing: you could say that about Bradley Cooper
yeah,
because he should have been okay, and he's in my camp on this. Okay, he should have been nominated for A Star Is Born,
for
but it was
director,
his
yeah,
directorial debut. Okay, and
yeah.
we all know that you can make an absolute banger out of the blocks. And that, by the way, that was his directorial debut, as I said, and they're not going to nominate you. So everybody was waiting to see what his follow up was.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, well, let's see what his follow up is. And then when he comes out with this and he misses at not only the Oscars, but he missed the DGA,
Yeah.
it's like, well, wait a minute, why doesn't he like me? And it's not about that. The thing is, and you said it perfectly earlier, okay? He needs to stick just behind the camera.
That's that's the only theory I have as to why he's missing director the 2 times is that they don't like actor turned directors directing themselves into these Oscar baity roles. They'd rather either you do it yourself and let someone else direct it or
He's got to
vice
take it.
versa.
What he has to do is he has to take a page out of Clint Eastwood's book.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. 5 spots, someone's going to get screwed. The thing is that here's the thing that Clint Eastwood, God bless his heart, at 93 years old, for 30 or 40 years, okay, he won or not won, but he starred in films, regardless of the films, Dirty Harry, Magnum Force, whatever they were. Okay, he ended up winning very early in his directorial career. Okay, he ended up winning for Unforgiven. Okay, but after that, he realized that okay, I need to stay behind the camera, and that's all you've seen. You have never seen Eastwood in front of the camera since. Now he's had
Yeah.
great company in his films, but he has never, whether it's Bradley Cooper or whoever it is, but he's never gotten in front of the camera. And I think that's what Bradley's starting to realize.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing
Well,
too is it's been 5 years.
yeah. And it's,
And I guarantee you right now, as we're live streaming today, he's already working on his next project.
yeah, I think he
So
is.
it's one of those things too where it's quality over quantity, and I get it. But every 5 years of turning something out, people are going to go, eh. So the next, he's still trying to figure it out. He
Yeah.
got
The other,
so in depth with this
Mhm.
that it took so long to make, and it
Yeah.
was, don't get me wrong, it was really, really good. But now he's learning, okay, I need to stay behind the camera. I can write it, but I will not. I can direct it, but I will not star in it.
Yeah, I think that's the only way that he gets into the directing lineup is if he just directs it. And you also have to keep in mind too, when Clint Eastwood won for Unforgiven, that was a completely different Academy system. In fact, half of those voters are probably gone.
Yeah, and he did
And
win for Million Dollar Baby.
yeah,
You're
so
right. What's
again,
smart?
yeah, there was like another year where it's like, okay, Clint Eastwood, it's they were more appreciative and favoring of actor turned directors. Now with the international branch, expanding, and
Expanding.
that's part of the reason why he missed for A Star Is Born. He missed for Cold War. Cold War got
Yeah.
in for director because the international branch was like, we like this artsy international type of cinema, compared to a populist movie like A Star Is Born.
Yeah.
So.
So
So like I said, that's the only way I could see Cooper ever getting a director nomination.
and I think
You
he
write it,
realizes
you
that now.
produce it, you direct it, don't act in it.
Yeah, I think he realizes that now.
I hope he does, because otherwise I cannot see my boy go home with like double digit losing. I cannot. You like someone needs to go to this man.
Gerwin is an
But
actress too.
the
Good
thing
point
about
about
Barbie
Bradley.
though, the thing about Barbie and some of her other films though, like even Lady Bird, she still got in for director though. Even Jordan Peele got in for director too, despite not doing like a major acting role. I think Jordan Peele did like a voice cameo, but that was it. In Get Out. But like Greta Gerwig didn't act in her movies alongside and directing like Cooper is. They just, like I said, like that's the reason why Gerwig get missed. It's just she did a populist movie. And I saw some complaints online saying like, why did Joker miss? Why did Joker make it in for director and not Gerwig? Joker, even though that's,
That was a
yes,
different movie.
it's a different movie. Also, the way that's directed and stylized, it appeals to that artsy international populist kind, not populist, but like
Popular.
snobby kind of voters. Yeah. And it managed to make $1 billion, which was kind of a shock. Honestly, it made that much money. Whereas Barbie, like I said, it was always intended to be a moneymaker from start to finish. It didn't
Gerwin got
matter.
DGA knob. It was a snub.
Yeah, I
Okay,
know.
so the reason why, here's the thing. The reason why Joker, and I've said this about countless films going back 25 years.
Yeah.
Okay, you look at all the films, okay, that have been nominated for double-digit Academy Awards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whether it's American Hustle or it's Power of the Dog or it's La La Land. Couple of things. Number one, the Academy likes to share the wealth. Okay, they're not going to send it home with. I mean, yes, even Everything Everywhere All at Once won 7 Oscars last year. Okay, you're never going to see something like Return of the King again. Okay,
No.
But the point is that it's the reason why Joker made as much money as it made, and it had nothing to do with the money, okay, or very little to do with the money. The reason why Joker made so much money is we've had different iterations of the character. You go back over 30 plus years, whether it's the 89 Jack Nicholson one, whether it's, Heath Ledger, whether it's, God forgive me for saying this, the Jared Leto one. We've had so many different iterations. We've never had a Joker that's been a dark, serious, with the extent of Ledger, okay, who ended up winning an Oscar, by the way. That being all said, it was a darker, grittier Joker, and it was about him. We'd never seen the origin story of the film, of him, the Joker. So when you get a deep, dark film like that, with mental illness and everything else, and it touched on a lot of nerves, and you had the cinematography, and you had, I mean, the dance, and you had everything else. Joaquin was very, very instrumental in doing
Yeah.
all that, and that's why he ended up winning the Oscar 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That look at it like this: Joaquin Phoenix has been in films going all the way back to Gladiator 2000. Okay, this film coming out in October, I want to say it's October. It's the only film that he's ever done a sequel for. Think about
Yeah.
that.
The only one.
I mean, he's done Beau is Afraid. He's done, whatever. But the
Napoleon.
point is, that's the only sequel. He believed in it that much, and he believed in Todd Phillips that much to come back.
Yeah.
So, all of that being said, the reason why Joker was so successful, getting back to your point, is it was different. When you have different films, that's part of it. I mean, you take a look at Everywhere All at Once, you take a look at Barbie, whatever. But just because you have a quote different film doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a successful film. Because look at, once again, turn around and look at Barbie, $1.5 billion. Best actress miss, best director misses. Okay, you take a look at Everywhere All at Once, quote different movie, wins 7 Oscars. Doesn't make it makes some money, but it doesn't blow up. So the body has something to do with it. And the last thing I'll say is this: you have all 10,000, over 10,000 members voting for the best picture of the year. When at the start of the nominations and the Academy director comes out and says, you have to understand something. Each and every body, okay, votes on their category. So all the male actors are going to vote for acting. All the female actors are going to vote for the best lead. All the directors are going to vote for them. So just because they vote one way doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it. Just because they voted for DGA doesn't mean they're necessarily going to do the same thing, because there's so many more votes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different, variables. Um,
You also have the publicists in there. You have
oh
visual
yeah,
effects artists.
like I said, there's so many
Stuff like
different
that.
things.
So
Yeah, Phillips made a very dark and edgy artistic film, and it made $1 billion.
yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, Joker was an accident. Let's call
Yeah.
a spade a spade.
And
Nobody ever thought that movie was going to blow up. It's like Oppenheimer this year.
yeah.
If you had told me, if we had made a bet and said, I bet you Oppenheimer is going to make $1 billion, I would have laughed in your face.
Yeah.
I would have laughed in your face.
It actually could do it in like the next couple
No, but I
weeks.
mean, but the point is that nobody thought that. If you had come in 2019 and said, I bet you Joker makes $1 billion, they would have laughed. I would
Yeah.
have laughed in your face, because nobody had ever thought that was kind of like, oh my God, that's really going to do that. But the thirst, the hunger was there for that character. That's why, a lot of people, including myself, are really wondering. It's a different economy and a different landscape. But when push comes to shove, what is it? Look, if anybody thinks, I'm going to say this right now, if anybody thinks that Joker 2 is going to get 11 nominations, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
You're
Again,
out
it's
of your
just like,
mind.
yeah. Again, I just don't know if Joker 2 will even match to the success of like what the first one did in
Because
terms
the
of like Academy
expectation,
recognitions. Yeah.
the expectation is so high. When you hit that pinnacle, you hit your high. I
Yeah.
hate to use the analogy. It's like a drug addict that hits that high for the first time. They're always
Mhm.
chasing it. Once
Yeah.
you hit that $1 billion mark, you're always chasing it. That's
Mhm.
why sequels are so hard to make. And
Yeah.
there's only about 10 or 12 of them that are that good. Whether it's Empire
And-
Strikes Back
yeah.
somebody just watched, I think it was Kit that just watched Empire Strikes Back for the first time the other day, and she was blown away.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, whether
And,
it's, Temple of Doom or Empire, but that's the thing. The Dark Knight, and coming out of that, it's so hard to make a good film, let alone a great film, let alone $1 billion film. So there's a lot of different variables. And yeah. So that was that. He says, "How did Zone miss cinematography with all those incredible
So
effects? Puzzling."
yeah, I always thought with the way that the Zone of Interest was directed, you know, if you look at the behind the scenes stuff, and this is also what helps you predict the Oscars as well, not just with your whole cheat sheet chart. You have to
Mhm.
actually do your research and watch the fucking movies. You also have to look at what kind of directing techniques that they ended up doing. And one technique I noticed early on was when you see the movie, they shot it almost like surveillance cameras. Like they put cameras all around the area of the places they were in. Everything was scripted, of course, but they shot it. They didn't do any. They didn't do any special close-ups on the actors, like Sandra Hüller or the husband in the film. But again, it's shot very much like the kind of artsy, pretentious, you know, snobby side of voters would go for. And yeah, that's why I miss cinematography. And El Condi is just like Edward Lockman is a bigger name amongst the Academy voters than Lucas Sol, who's only gotten in twice for international films that were shot completely in black and white, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
but
it's
yeah.
just, but it's one of those annoying fish lens cam
But you
that
know
poor
what?
things got in.
Everyone
Got in.
everyone said the same thing about The Favorite though, and The Favorite still got in for cinematography. It appeals to the like cinematography voters. Like they have this like fisheye lens, and there
Yeah,
was even some people I've talked with who, or even heard from, that they actually love the look of Poor Things more than The Favorite was with its fisheye lens. So,
yeah.
um,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
that goes to cinematography and everything else. And one thing I'll say is this: that and he says the infrareds in the zone were
yeah, they were really
terrifying.
good.
You
Yeah,
know, I
oh
mean,
man.
it goes to, it's depending on what the vision of the director wants, the cinematographer, and what they're able to come up with, and everything
Mhm.
else. And I will say one thing: at least we have a very diverse type of thing. There were no major. I mean, there were a couple of major misses, but that's to be expected. But see, we're going to say that every single year, though.
Yep.
We're going to talk about that every single year. I mean, look at last year. Last year is a per. Last year is a perfect example of that. And the reason I bring that up is because everybody, or very few, knew who Andrea Riseborough was.
Mhm.
Guess what? She gets nominated for an Oscar and go, who?
Yeah.
What? And the one omission everybody's talking about was the Woman King. Where the hell is Viola Davis?
That was another genre bias performance that they
And
just were not
so
into.
there's always going to be that odd man out. Somebody is always going to have a chair. There's not going to be enough chairs when the music
It's a
stops.
musical chair game.
It really is. And when the
Yeah,
music stops, you better have a chair.
yeah. And the other
So,
thing, and this is another lesson too, like I've seen every year, just because you have Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, SAG, BAFTA nominations does not automatically mean you're safe for the Oscars. Um,
Detweiler.
Deadwire,
Yeah.
well, Deadwire would miss Golden Globes, but they snubbed that movie because they didn't want to watch, you know, because of the story that it was, and they didn't want to, you know, sit through the whole movie.
Yeah.
Whereas someone like Domingo for Rustin got in because it was like a light, fluffy kind of movie that's a crowd pleasing film that they could watch. Same with Naiad. Um, yeah, it
Yeah.
happens every year though. So
Yeah. So, okay, guys. So that is
that was a lot.
the, that was, yeah. I actually missed, I forgot, I found the slide later. We're not going to do it, visual effects, but there's so
That
many different categories and everything
Yeah.
else. But,
The only couple notes I'll say for as a whole, great that Godzilla got in. First time
yes.
Godzilla as a franchise got in. I'm so happy that they, they were actually able to say, nope, we're actually going to nominate this. Mission Impossible finally got
Yes, they
two
got
Oscar
two.
nominations, which is
Woohoo!
awesome. Yes. But that category is going to be really tricky to go for. Right now, I'm predicting Napoleon to win at the moment,
Mhm.
but it could go to it literally could go to almost any of them at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did predict 5 for 5 for score. I always knew Spider-Man wasn't going to happen because if something like Pinocchio couldn't do it last year with a bigger name director like Del Toro, what makes you think Spider-Verse is going to do it? And even though Spider-Verse, the whole team did a really good job trying to campaign that for voters, they had the whole orchestra set there, do a whole live record, presentation of it.
Yeah.
they did everything they could, and it just shows to you that the Academy will not nominate animated films in other categories unless you're like Disney or
Toy
Pixar. But even
Story
then,
or yeah.
but even then, like Disney and Pixar only got into like what animated film maybe, and maybe the shorts. But and then yeah, Indiana Jones 5 got in for score just because it's John Williams. They fucking love him.
Yeah.
Really happy about Poor Things getting in for score. That score is really good. And that might be it for the
I love
moment.
the Mission Impossible nods. If you liked, yeah, no, I thought they were fantastic. Actually, Whip Smart, go ahead and go back and watch. So I did a whole retrospective of all of the Mission Impossible films,
Mm-hmm.
all the way going back from 1996. I didn't do Dead Reckoning, but I did all of the. I sat down, took notes. Each one's about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
You really, really like it. But
I would also recommend for people out there who haven't gotten a chance, maybe I'll try to link it below in the comments, but I'll try to find the VFX reels for some of these visual effects nominees, especially Mission Impossible, because ever since I saw that movie in theaters and with the whole train escapade that happens at the
my
end,
God,
I thought to myself, like, I would love to see this get in for visual effects at the Oscars, because when you see some of the debris and what was CG and what wasn't, it's astonishing how good it looked. So
I'm 40. I've seen. Oh wow,
that's good.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So yeah. So guys, I got to just say this outright. These are the kind of people. These are the kind of guests I'd like to bring on for you and myself, but mainly for you guys because of the. He is one of the experts in this whole thing, and he's got an ear to the ground on certain things. So quick question. I mean, obviously it's out and everything else. How far did you know in advance? I know you said you couldn't talk about it for like 6 or 8 months. How far? I know it was eating at you. Like, tell everybody, tell all the viewers here quickly what the bet was.
Oh God, really? Oh,
I'm gonna. Okay, so the point. The point is
no,
he knew a long time.
So
And
yeah. So this is the only time, even if I won the bet, I'm like, I'm never doing this kind of prediction ever again. And this is why we do it by year basis. You don't predict too far out. I had predicted that Cooper was going to win an Oscar for Maestro. He's not going to this year. I won't be named Godfather to my one of my best friends, Samantha Davis.
Tell everybody what director.
So I now have
to watch
on March 10th, assuming Cooper actually doesn't win officially. I will have to do the rest of the year. I'm going to space it out and maybe do a couple of drinks for these films. I now have to watch the rest of Michael Bay's filmography he's done up to this point, which is Armageddon, Pearl Harbor, Transformers 4, Transformers 5, and Ambulance, along with 13 Hours. So that's six movies.
Nice. But yeah,
that's not nice. I'm gonna fucking die.
Well, you know, there'll be films you haven't seen before. So, but in all honesty, these are the kind of viewers I enjoy bringing on. So, what I'm gonna ask, guys, and you can head on over here. Okay, this is the membership page, and I've made this. So, a couple of things. Number one, I've made this extremely cheap. Okay, the first month you're gonna get for free. It's on the house, but basically the lowest one I have is $3 a month. Okay, that's a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Okay, the highest is $10 a month. You can't get all this content anywhere else for $10 a month. Okay, I'm doing retrospectives. As a matter of fact, you were talking about, Get Out earlier. That is going to be my perfect movie for February. I've got doing retrospectives, interviews like this, everything else. What I would really like you to do, if you could, okay, is head on over to the membership page, hit that join button, okay, and it would help me in a couple of ways. Number one, I'm trying to make this a full-time job. So, I mean, what I'm doing for you is a side hustle, but I want to absolutely get you guys the best content. Everything that you guys give, I'm putting back in the channel, okay? Number two, hashtag Road to 2000. That's my goal by the end of this year. Okay. I want to hit 2,000 subscribers. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is by you guys not only watching the videos, but hitting that, as it says down there, hitting that like and subscribe button, because that tells me It tells Matthew, because he is on YouTube, that you like the content, which, and it, the algorithm can be very, very iffy sometimes. And moreover than that, you're just helping me out. And I can continue to bring you guys all of this stuff. Um, and yeah, I'm not one to beg for money or anything else, but what I will say is this: this is movies, and you can tell it's his dream, it's my passion. We live for this stuff.
Yeah.
We live for this stuff. I mean, he was up at 4:30 this morning,
Yep.
ready
4:30
to
this
sit
morning.
and to do this. And it's one of those things where this is what we like to do. And this is what we love to talk about. And we're going to be speculating all the way up to March 10th and who's going to win. And we're even probably going to be doing Spaces on the 10th live. I did it last year. I'll do it this year too. But
Yeah.
seriously.
We'll talk afterwards about the 10th, because I something might be coming up, but we'll talk about that afterwards.
But yeah, it's just one of those things where this is a big thing, and I would really like you guys to help me out on my journey. So yeah, that's Oscar nominations 2024. I can't believe that it's going to be a long, long time. When are the BAFTAs? Well, I'm not sorry. When are the SAGs?
I'm looking it up right
The
now.
SAGs so we still have two more precursors to go, guys. We have the BAFTAs and we have the SAGs.
We also have, for other categories, we also have the guilds to look at too, which they're going to be spread out.
Absolutely.
So the Screen Actors Guild is going to be February 24th.
So that's about a month from now.
We have another month. Oh, fuck.
So, going to be a lot of speculation and everything else, but it's going to be well worth it. So what I would say here is this: come back on the channel, okay? I'm going to be doing live streams on this, a lot of other movies. We got Black History Month right around the corner. I'm going to be doing movies like 42, The Butler, Invictus. As I said, Get Out being the perfect movie, and everything else. So that's going to do it for us today. Thank you very much for coming on. I know it's been 2 hours, and I got to get some sleep. Yep. So, all right, guys. In all honesty, though, do the three things that you got to do. Number 1 is be safe. Number 2 is take care of yourself, and number 3 is have a great rest of the day. And I will see you back here very soon. And that's it. So I'm David Steele. He's Matthew Anderson. And you guys have been watching Real Talks. Bye-bye, guys.